Have you ever noticed how the people who talk the most about their strength are often the ones trembling inside? They don't confess their fear outright. They don't admit their fragility. They simply speak louder, stand taller, and perform harder. And suddenly you realize the performance itself is the confession. Now imagine if you could decode this language. Imagine if you could read what people are really saying beneath the words they've carefully rehearsed. That's where the real power lies. Because Friedrich Nietzsche understood something most people spend their entire lives missing. Humans don't communicate through speech. They communicate through behavior, through patterns, through the very masks they wear to hide. You've been taught to listen to words. From childhood, you are trained to believe that language equals truth. If someone says, "I'm fine," you accept it. If someone says, "I don't care," you believe them. But here's a truth that perhaps no one has told you. Words are the least honest thing about a person. Nietzsche saw through this centuries ago. He wrote, "I'm not upset that you lied to me. I'm upset that from now on, I can't believe you." But he understood something deeper, that people don't even realize they're lying. They've rehearsed their lines so many times, performed their roles so consistently that they've become strangers to their own truth. Carl Jung expanded on this with his concept of the persona, the social mask we construct to survive in the world. But Jung warned us. The persona is a complicated system of relations between the individual consciousness and society. A kind of mask, designed on the one hand to make a definite impression upon others, and on the other to conceal the true nature of the individual. Do you see what's happening here? Every person you meet is operating behind a carefully constructed facade. Not because they're inherently deceptive, but because authenticity feels dangerous. Real vulnerability feels like suicide in a world that punishes weakness. But here's what most people don't realize. The mask always has cracks. Watch someone long enough and you'll see them. The way their voice tightens when you mention a certain topic. The nervous laugh that doesn't match their words, the excessive explanation when a simple answer would do. These aren't accidents, these are leaks. And Nietzsche gave us the map to read them. Jung called this the shadow, everything we've repressed, denied, or hidden from ourselves. He said, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. The shadow doesn't disappear when we ignore it. It shows up in our patterns, our projections, our desperate performances. So when someone is performing strength, ask yourself, what weakness are they hiding? When someone is performing happiness, ask, what pain are they avoiding? When someone is performing indifference, ask, what do they care about so deeply it terrifies them? This is the hidden mechanism Nietzsche exposed. We don't see people as they are. We see the armor they've constructed to survive. And until you understand this, you'll spend your entire life reacting to masks instead of connecting with souls. Let me tell you why this matters more than you think. Most people walk through life believing they understand human nature. They categorize people into neat little boxes, good or bad, honest or fake, strong or weak. But Nietzsche would laugh at this simplicity. He understood that every behavior is a confession, not of what someone is, but of what they fear. Let's start with the first psychological truth, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Truth number one, everyone wears a mask to survive. Not because they're fake, but because they're scared. The person who's excessively nice isn't necessarily kind. They might be terrified of rejection. The person who seems emotionally distant isn't necessarily cold. They might have been punished every time they showed vulnerability. Nietzsche wrote, "Every profound spirit needs a mask." He didn't mean this as judgment. He meant it as observation. Jung expanded this beautifully. The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. We each construct our mask based on what we needed to survive, and that mask becomes so familiar, so comfortable, that we forget we're wearing it at all. Truth number 2. What someone hates in others reveals what they're hiding in themselves. This is pure projection, and it's everywhere once you start looking. The person who constantly mocks arrogance is usually drowning in self-doubt. The person who can't stop pointing out dishonesty is often the one with secrets they can't face. Nietzsche understood this intimately. You have your way. I have my way. As for the right way, the correct way, and the only way, it does not exist. But here's the cruelest part. We don't hate randomly. We hate strategically. We hate the parts of others that remind us of what we've banished in ourselves. Jung called this the projection mechanism. Projections change the world into the replica of one's own unknown face. Do you know why criticism feels so righteous? Because it's easier to attack the enemy outside than to face the enemy within. It's easier to judge someone else's arrogance than to admit your own need for superiority. It's easier to call out someone's neediness than to acknowledge your own hunger for validation. Truth number 3. Silence reveals more than words. Nietzsche didn't trust language. He saw it as a tool of conformity, a way for the herd to enforce sameness. He wrote, "All credibility, all good conscience, all evidence of truth come only from the senses." What he meant was this: watch what people do when they're not speaking. Watch what topics they avoid. Notice what makes them shift uncomfortably in their seat. When someone pauses too long before answering, they're calculating. When someone changes the subject abruptly, they're protecting. When someone gives rehearsed, superficial responses to deep questions, they're hiding. The Austrian psychiatrist Viktor Frankl observed, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response." But most people use that space not for conscious choice. They use it for evasion. Truth number 4. Excessive virtue is often disguised vanity. Be wary of the person who's always performing their goodness, the one who needs everyone to know how ethical, how pure, how enlightened they are. Nietzsche called this the will to power in disguise. He wrote, "He who despises himself still esteems himself as a self-despiser." Real virtue doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need applause or recognition. It simply exists. But when someone's morality becomes a performance, when they can't help but broadcast their righteousness, you're witnessing something darker, superiority dressed as humility. Jung warned about this too. The acceptance of oneself is the essence of the moral problem and the epitome of a whole outlook upon life. When we haven't accepted our own darkness, we become obsessed with displaying our light. Truth number 5. People don't lie to you first. They lie to themselves. This one changes everything. Those lies you hear, "I'm fine," "I'm over it," "I don't care," aren't conspiracies against you. They're survival mechanisms people have been using on themselves for years, maybe decades. Nietzsche understood self-deception, not as evil, but as necessity. He wrote, "Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed. We lie to ourselves because the truth is unbearable. We lie to ourselves because facing reality would mean dismantling the entire identity we've built." Jung called this unconscious compensation. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. People aren't consciously deceiving you. They're unconsciously deceiving themselves. And when their story doesn't add up, when the pieces don't fit, you're witnessing that internal contradiction leaking through. Truth number 6. Where someone feels superior, they're hiding inferiority. Pure Nietzsche. He believed that superiority is almost always overcompensation. If someone constantly reminds you of their accomplishments, they fear they're not enough. If someone casually puts others down, they're terrified of being overlooked themselves. He wrote, "There is always some madness in love. But there is also always some reason in madness." Replace love with superiority. And you see the pattern. Behind every performance of dominance is a wound that won't heal. Real confidence doesn't compete. It doesn't need to prove anything. It simply exists. So when someone needs to dominate every conversation, control every situation, or prove their worth constantly, look deeper. Behind the throne, you'll find a scared child wearing a crown they stole. Now here's what most people get wrong about reading others. They think it's about gaining power over them. They think it's about manipulation or control. But Nietzsche wasn't teaching domination. He was teaching liberation. When you truly learn to read people, something unexpected happens. You stop judging them. You stop taking their behavior personally. You start seeing them as they actually are. Wounded beings doing their best to survive in a world that never taught them how to heal. Let me continue with the remaining truths, because each one peels back another layer. Truth number 7. Most actions are driven by unconscious fear. Ask yourself this. Why does someone over-explain simple things? Why do they dominate every conversation or disappear from them entirely? Why do they say yes when they clearly mean no? Fear. Fear of abandonment, rejection, humiliation, failure. Nietzsche knew that humans rarely act from pure desire. He wrote, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." But most people are so terrified of their inner chaos that they spend their lives avoiding it. So when you want to read someone, stop focusing on what they say they want. Instead ask, what are they afraid of losing? That's where the truth lives. That's where their behavior makes sense. Truth number 8. When someone criticizes too much, it's projection. Next time someone constantly critiques others, listen closely. Really listen. The man who mocks emotional people might be terrified of his own feelings. The woman who belittles others for their appearance might be fighting a secret war with her own reflection. Nietzsche said, "There are no facts, only interpretations." Every criticism is revealing the critic's internal world. It's showing you what they can't accept in themselves. Jung was more direct. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. And here's the humor in it. We're all walking around pointing at others' flaws while completely blind to our own. It's almost comedic if it wasn't so tragic. Truth number 9. Guilt hides behind false confidence. There's a person you've met before, overly certain, always composed, seemingly unshakable. But watch them long enough and you'll see the cracks, the tension in their jaw, the way they over-prepare, the defensiveness when questioned. Nietzsche observed this in leaders, teachers, preachers, those who perform certainty because they're terrified of being exposed. He wrote, "The advantage of a bad memory is that one enjoys several times the same good things for the first time." But he could have added, "The advantage of false confidence is that you can hide from guilt without ever facing it." When someone is chronically confident, ask yourself, what are they trying to bury? Real peace doesn't perform. Real security doesn't need constant validation. Truth number 10. People betray themselves through exaggeration. This one is subtle but devastating once you see it. Someone who constantly says, "I don't care what anyone thinks," likely cares deeply. Someone who claims, "I'm always happy," likely isn't. Exaggeration is volume, and volume is designed to drown out doubt. Nietzsche believed that extremism in any direction reveals imbalance, not strength. Jung agreed, "The pendulum of the mind oscillates between sense and nonsense, not between right and wrong." So when someone's statements sound too absolute, "I never," "I always," "I don't care," don't believe the content. Read the insecurity underneath. What are they trying to silence? Truth number 11. Those who seek control often fear inner chaos. Control. Some people crave it like oxygen. They micromanage every detail. can't handle uncertainty, need to dominate every situation, and most people think this is strength. Nietzsche saw differently. He wrote, "You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star. Those who fear chaos, most are the ones drowning in it internally. When the inner world feels disordered, the outer world must be managed obsessively." Jung called this inflation, when the ego tries to compensate for inner fragmentation by controlling external reality. But control is exhausting. It's a battle that can never be won. So instead of fearing the controlling person, see them for what they are, someone terrified that the moment they let go, everything will fall apart. Truth number 12. The louder the performance, the emptier the core. This is perhaps Nietzsche's most relevant truth for our time. Look at social media, the endless "look at me" energy, the perfect poses, the constant updates, the curated identity. He wrote, "In individuals, insanity is rare, but in groups, parties, nations, and epochs, it is the rule." Replace insanity with performance, and you see our current reality. When someone is constantly performing, it's because they don't believe they'll be seen or loved without it. Jung would say they've identified entirely with the persona and lost touch with the self. The person who truly knows themselves doesn't need to be watched. They're already whole. So when someone's life looks like a 24/7 performance, remember, it's not a show of power. It's a whisper of need. Truth number 13. No one speaks from logic. They speak from pain. You think people are rational, that they argue from facts, make decisions from reason. But Nietzsche knew better. He wrote, "There are no eternal facts, as there are no absolute truths." Underneath every logical argument is an emotional wound. Someone says, "I don't believe in love," and you think they're being philosophical, but they're actually protecting a pain. They're creating a worldview that justifies their avoidance. People form their beliefs based on what hurt them, then they justify those beliefs with logic. So when you want to understand someone's worldview, don't ask what they believe. Ask what broke them, ask what scared them, ask what they never want to feel again. This changes everything. It shifts your focus from "why are they saying this?" to "what are they afraid of repeating?" And suddenly their opinions aren't threats. They're defenses. Their arguments aren't attacks. They're shields. Truth number 14. How someone reacts to weakness reveals their power. Want to truly see someone's character? Don't watch how they treat powerful people. Watch how they treat someone who can't fight back. Nietzsche believed real strength isn't proven through domination. It's revealed through restraint. He wrote, "The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly." If someone mocks vulnerability, they're afraid of their own. If someone punishes mistakes, they likely weren't allowed to make any themselves. But the person who can witness weakness without judgment, who can sit with sadness without running, who can forgive what they could have punished, that's someone no longer ruled by their past. They don't need to prove anything because they've already won the inner war. Jung said it perfectly. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people. Truth number 15. When someone fears being forgotten, they chase attention. Ever met someone who always needs to be seen? Every story centers on them, every conversation becomes their stage. At first glance, it looks like confidence, but Nietzsche saw through it. He understood that the hunger for attention comes from a deeper fear, the fear of being invisible, of being erased, of living and dying without leaving a mark. The child who is ignored becomes the adult who overcompensates. And instead of asking for love directly, because that would make them vulnerable, they demand it indirectly through performance, drama, or chaos. So when you see someone who's too much, don't rush to judgment. Ask what they're afraid will happen if they're not enough. Truth number 16. The person they attack is often the person they envy. One of Nietzsche's boldest truths: people don't always attack because they hate. They often attack because they admire, but feel they can never become. He wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. But sometimes the tribe is within us, the internalized voices telling us what we can't be, what we're not allowed to want. So when someone tears down another's success, mocks their confidence, or gossips about their freedom, they're not just being mean, they're in pain. To see someone embody a part of you that you've abandoned is to be reminded of what you've lost. Envy is just unspoken desire. It's the soul saying, 'I want that too, but I don't believe I'm allowed.' If you can see this in others, you become immune to petty hate. If you can see this in yourself, you become free." Truth number 17. People act out their childhood, not their beliefs. You've heard, people don't change, but Nietzsche would say, people repeat. They repeat the roles they were forced to play, the fears they were taught to carry, the dynamics they never escaped. A person who was never heard becomes someone who never listens. A person punished for expressing emotion becomes cold, logical, detached. A person who had to earn love becomes someone who performs for affection, even when it's destroying them. Jung called this the complex. A complex is the image of a certain psychic situation which is strongly accentuated emotionally and is, moreover, incompatible with the habitual attitude of consciousness. They think they're acting from beliefs, but they're really reenacting the past. So if you want to read someone, don't just look at who they are, ask who they had to be. Because behavior is biography, and behind every adult is a child still waiting to feel safe. Truth number 18. Their patterns are a confession, if you know how to listen. This is the final truth, and it transforms everything. People don't always know how to express what hurts, but they will show you again and again through patterns. A person who ghosts when things get close. A person who overworks to avoid stillness. A person who flirts with everyone but connects with no one. These aren't random behaviors. They're confessions. They're saying, "This is how I protect myself." They're saying, "This is where I was hurt." They're saying, "This is what I fear repeating." Nietzsche wrote, "One repays a teacher badly if one always remains nothing but a pupil." But life is the ultimate teacher, and our patterns are the lessons we haven't learned yet when you learn to listen deeply, not to words but to patterns. You can hear the truth before it's spoken. And when you do, something remarkable happens. You stop personalizing. You stop judging. You start understanding. You become a mirror, not a weapon. You become someone who sees and still chooses grace. So here you are, armed with 18 psychological truths that Nietzsche spent his life uncovering. But I need you to understand something crucial. This wasn't just about reading other people. Every truth we explored, every mask, every projection, every fear, they live in you too. The patterns you judge in others are the patterns you haven't acknowledged in yourself. The behaviors that irritate you most are often the ones you're most afraid of embodying. Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." And Nietzsche wrote, "He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster." And if you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you. This is the real transformation. When you learn to read people clearly, you're simultaneously learning to read yourself. You begin to notice your own masks, your own projections, your own childhood scripts playing out in adult situations. And that's terrifying. But it's also liberating, because the more clearly you see others, the more compassion you develop. Not just for them, but for yourself. You realize everyone is wounded, everyone is trying, everyone is walking around with childhood pain they haven't healed, wearing masks they don't even know they're wearing. Nietzsche didn't want us to use these truths as weapons. He wanted us to use them as mirrors. He wanted us to see so clearly that judgment becomes impossible and connection becomes inevitable. This is psychological sovereignty. This is what Jung called individuation, the journey of becoming who you truly are beneath the masks, beneath the conditioning, beneath the fear. And here's the beautiful part. When you stop performing, when you stop hiding, when you finally let the mask slip and show the world your actual face, you give others permission to do the same. You become the permission slip. People have been waiting for their entire lives. Today, we learned from Friedrich Nietzsche that beneath every mask is a frightened human trying to survive, and from Carl Jung that the journey to authenticity begins when we stop identifying with our persona and start embracing our shadow. We discovered that reading others isn't about manipulation. It's about liberation. It's about seeing so clearly that compassion becomes automatic and connection becomes real. If these insights sparked a moment of recognition for you, if you saw yourself or someone you know in these truths, hit that like button and share this wisdom with someone who needs it. Subscribe to join our channel, where we dive deeper into the psychological and philosophical truths that transform how we see ourselves and the world around us. We're building something honest together, a space where masks can come off and real growth can happen. Which of these 18 truths hit you the hardest? Drop a comment below and let's explore this together. Your insight might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Remember, you're not broken, you're human. And every pattern you've developed, every mask you've worn, was designed to keep you safe. The question now is, do you still need it? Or are you finally ready to see what's underneath? Until we meet again, carry these insights forward with compassion, for others and especially for yourself. The journey of psychological awakening isn't about becoming someone new, it's about remembering who you've always been beneath the armor. Keep watching, keep growing, and keep questioning. This is just the beginning. May you find our talks not only educational, but also inspirational, and hopefully, ultimately, transformational. See you next time.